Hello, Honors Biology. Mr. A has graciously agreed to be my substitute teacher for this block this morning. I had a doctor's appointment with my neurologist, and so I'd rather be with you guys, but I am with my migraine doctor instead. It's probably better for you because you would not like me while I'm having a migraine. So, Mr. A, who in honors chemistry taught you guys how to write a scientific answer. And we are going to build on that foundation in this lab for polarity and bonding and bond type. So let's first remember on our homepage on Schoology, I have this folder with probably way too many links about technical writing and specifically moving into bigger scientific lab reports, kind of lab reports. Lab reports actually mimic a journal article. And when you get to college, you will write these types of lab reports that really are mini journal articles. So there are differences between what a lab report that you would write in high school or middle school, elementary school, compared to what would be published in a journal article. Couple examples would be abstracts. You probably don't write many abstracts before you get to college. And probably the biggest difference is the materials and methods section. In a journal article, the materials and methods are written in paragraph form. You do not make a list of the what you use in the experiment, and you don't write out step 1, step 2, step 3. It's written in paragraph form. But that's something you'll do once you get to college. We're going to come back in just a second and watch a couple of these videos. And then there's also links to Rice University has a really good website with very concise instructions on how to write lab reports. That might be something good for you when you go to college. And then University of Richmond also has a really, really good website for how to write the different sections of these college level lab reports. So we're going to come back to that in just a second. But first, let's look at the lab itself. For this technical writing, you are going to explain in detail and justify why the OH bond in water is a polar covalent bond. For the introduction, you should begin with a statement. And a good statement is to rewrite the prompt. So you could say the OH bond in water is a polar covalent bond. If the prompt was a question or maybe on a short answer in a test, etc., a good introduction sentence is to rewrite the question as a statement, and then you will show the reader that you do understand the question or the prompt by giving it significance as a statement at the very beginning. Then the rest of your paragraphs will support that answer. So your first sentence will be something very similar to the OH bond in water is a polar covalent bond. You'll need to give a definition of what a polar covalent bond is, and then a statement that you are going to prove that the OH bond is a polar covalent bond by the delta EN method for determining bond type. And you are setting up the next section where you will in detail explain what the delta EN method is. So make sure you don't do that here. That's a common mistake, is to explain the delta EN method twice. The introduction is an introduction. You are setting up the rest of this technical writing. And you could even say that you will describe this in detail below. But you will state in the introduction your intention of showing that the OH bond is a polar covalent bond using the delta EN method, because the delta EN method is a way to determine bond type. And that is the method you're going to use in this paper. If you were doing a different experiment, maybe in a PChem class, which is a physical chemistry class, you might be making calculations from instrumentation, where you are measuring the amount of energy in the bond, etc. But for this paper, you are using this method. And then, because the term electronegativity is used in the delta EN method, you'll want to give a definition of electronegativity here in the introduction. In the next paragraph, you will then give the more detailed explanation of the delta EN method. And remember that you are making statements. You are not convincing the reader of anything. You are telling them. And you tell them in these short statements. Keep in the back of your mind that you would like for the reader to be able to read your paper and then be able to look at any bond and determine if it's polar or nonpolar. Because you want to show that this method is a method. Anybody can use it. It is a widely used method for determining bond type. And thinking of it that way might help you write that justification paragraph number 1, that you are explaining to them how this process works. Then in the last paragraph, you are going to go through the steps that you just explained using the OH bond. So make sure in this introduction you don't give an example of how to calculate the delta EN of a bond, because you are actually going to go through those steps with the OH bond. The introduction is an introduction. Just set it up. You're going to explain it later. You could even refer the reader to the middle to end of the paper where you are going to go through this, or let them know as shown below, or as I will discuss below. You can use the first person. It is your paper, you are explaining it, but remember, you are writing it for other people to use. So you want to use the first person as little as possible. Then in that next paragraph, where you then go through the delta EN method using the OH bond, you will show that the OH bond indeed has the delta EN, which would make it a polar covalent bond. And the conclusion of this paper is that you have shown how to use the delta EN method. Then you use the method that you've just described for the OH bond, and the value of the delta EN of OH falls in the range of a polar covalent bond. Therefore, the OH bond is a polar covalent bond. You will be graded on these criteria, and in general, these criteria for the entire school year when you are writing these types of answers. You see that a majority of your grade comes from the reporting of factual evidence. Then 5% will be on the introduction. How are you setting up your answer? Do you understand what the question is? We'll be able to tell by the first 2 sentences of this paper. Cohesion, conclusion, this will be 5% of your grade. We're going to watch a short video on cohesion. And then style and conventions, are you capitalizing the first letter of the sentence? Are you showing me everything you've learned in all the English classes that you have taken? That'll be 5% of the grade. All right, we're gonna watch a video by a retired scientist, and she is going to discuss transitions. Transitions in scientific writing are incredibly important, and in this video she will explain why and how to use them.
Hi, this is Karen McHugh, retired scientist and author, with another video about scientific writing. When crafting a scientific paper, we try to build a logical argument that guides the reader through our data and leads them to a conclusion. To do this effectively requires good transitions between sentences, paragraphs, and sections of a paper. In a previous video, I talked about how to use narrative writing to craft papers that people enjoy reading. Using transitional bridges to connect your ideas in a logical sequence helps you build a good narrative. Without such transitions, your writing will be choppy and will not flow well. Using transitions effectively assumes that your writing is already reasonably well organized. That is, you started with a basic outline and have written out your ideas in a logical order. You just need to tie them together a bit better by using transitions. A transition may be a single word, a sentence, or a whole paragraph. Consider an example. Previous research has shown that waterlogging slows decomposition of organic matter. Accordingly, we found that leaves of mangroves decompose more slowly in permanently flooded parts of the forest. The single word accordingly serves as a transition between the 2 sentences. Without the transition, the reader is left to wonder how the 2 sentences relate to each other. Yes, the reader will likely figure this out, but adding the transition word leaves no doubt. Or we might use a transition word such as however to indicate a contrast between sentences. However, leaves of some species decompose faster, indicating the role of tissue chemistry in addition to environment in controlling decay rates. You can also use transitions to link paragraphs. An easy way to do this is to take a word or phrase from a paragraph and use it to begin the next paragraph. For example, we've mentioned tissue chemistry in an earlier example about plant decomposition. We would use the same words to begin the next paragraph, which goes into detail about tissue chemistry.
You're going to do the exact same thing in your paper. In the first paragraph, you are going to make a statement that you're going to use the delta EN method to determine bond type. Then in the next paragraph, you will give more detailed information on how you actually do the delta EN method. And then that next paragraph, you will go through those steps you just described with specifically the OH bond. That
simple technique will make your writing flow better. We can also use transitions to indicate a sequence or to order a series of paragraphs. For example, in discussing our results, we might say, there are 3 possible explanations for the outcome of this study. Then list them, 1, 2, 3. The next 3 paragraphs spell out each explanation. Each paragraph begins by stating the order of the sequence. Use the transition word first to begin the paragraph, and then describe reason number 1. The next paragraph starts with, a second possibility is, and explain number 2, followed by, the third explanation is, and describe the last reason. With just a few transition words and phrases, you can link long sections of text this way. Of course, you want to use this sequencing technique sparingly. Link at most 3 items, as in this example, not 20, and use it only once in a paper, or perhaps 2 or 3 times in a lengthy book chapter. You can also use transitions to indicate relative points in time, after, before, finally, during. The plants were grown in a growth chamber and acclimated to an ambient temperature of 22 degrees centigrade. After 2 months, under ambient conditions, the treatments were applied. Use transitions to denote an example that extends a description. Vegetation may promote sedimentation by reducing water flow and turbulence, or by trapping particles on the plant surfaces. For example, one study found that a common salt marsh grass captured sediment by both mechanisms.
So having a for example is a wonderful transition. However, this paper that you're writing, we don't need a for example, because you are going to determine the delta En of an OH bond. So you're sort of already giving an example because that is the purpose of this paper. If you were writing about a protein and you were making general statements about regions of the proteins having different polarities, etc., then you could say, for example, the bonds here are nonpolar because blah, blah, blah. But this is going to be way too short, and you're already giving an example as your actual paper.
Use transitions to link several ideas in a paragraph, such as additionally, also, as well as, alongside, and moreover. The effect of the vegetation on water flow velocity has been linked to canopy structures such as plant height, stem density, or biomass. In addition, plant shoot flexibility may influence water flow through the canopy. Use a transition sentence between sections of a paper. Deposition patterns may also reflect the influence of biological factors such as vegetation structure, which we consider next. This sentence summarizes what's coming in the succeeding section and alerts the reader to it with the phrase, which we consider next.
You could use that in this paper by setting up in the first paragraph the method that you will use to define and determine bond type. And then you could transition into the next paragraph, which will be explained in detail below, or which I will explain in detail below. You can write in the first person. It really depends on the journal that you're publishing in. In general, you can use first person, but you try to use it as little as possible. Because you did the work, you're writing the paper, you're making this claim and backing it up. But the intention of journal articles is to put in the literature methodology. The purpose is you are adding to this collective body of knowledge in the scientific community that others will come and use as resources. So you take credit for what you've done, but you want to write it so that someone else can take your journal article and then use it to either reproduce your experiment or build upon your experiment, or use your experiment. Maybe you've come up with a way to do a certain, whoever came up with the COVID-19 test, okay? Whoever came up with one of those tests, they developed it, then they would write it so that they explain what they did, but they're writing it so that you can take that journal article and now go perform the COVID test in your clinic over and over and over and over and over again. So you can use the first person, but try to use it as little as possible. It just makes it easier for the reader to use your paper.
Or you might end a section with this sentence. In the next section, we discuss how climate change may alter plant species composition. Use transition words to conclude or summarize your paper. Therefore, consequently, finally, in conclusion, in summary. This sentence, for example, might be used to begin the conclusion section and briefly restates the main finding of the paper. The rest of the section would go into more detail about why this is important and how the finding might guide conservation or restoration of mangrove forests. The point of using transitions is to provide signposts to readers that help them see where you are going and how you got to your conclusion. Transitions also help you avoid what seem to the reader to be abrupt jumps from one point to another. They link sentences, paragraphs, and sections, helping to build a strong narrative structure. Skilled writers can often add transitions as they write. Others may need to get their ideas down first and then go back and add transition words, sentences, and paragraphs. Either way works. If you are still struggling, find a paper or two in your field in which the writing seems to flow well and go through each one, highlighting transition words, phrases, and sentences.
All right, so Shay's really good videos. This one is really good because if you, at this point in your career, can master these transitions that she describes, then that will make a huge improvement on your technical writing. You notice there is the aspect of guiding the reader through your description and setting up what you're going to discuss. You make statements. All right, to summarize, you will be finishing your pre-lab if you haven't finished it. If you have finished your pre-lab and you need to make corrections, you can do that. Then you will begin and possibly finish writing your technical writing for this lab. And if you have any questions, I will be back virtually for office hours, and you can always email me as well. But you've also got Mr. A, who can absolutely help you with any of this. And I guess I'll just see you guys on Wednesday. X, Y, and Z.